Well, here we are again. We still haven't found a name for it. We don't know what we're doing. We're just talking nonsense on Tuesday evenings, I think it is. Um, Gene,
Shop talk with
Shop Talk. Gene, the lawyer dude, so we can't talk to Jonathan without caging what we say, and Patrick, of course, the invisible man there. Um, So first out of the gate this evening, Jonathan put up a post earlier this week in which he used as many song titles and references as he could, and that was talking about Form 8710. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, Jonathan.
Sure. Form 8710 is the form you're going to have to fill out when you want to go for your remote pilot certificate or add a small UAS rating onto your already existing Part 61 certificate. So the reason why that is important is because there have been some indications on the IACRA website, and that is the website portal for how you would go about actually filling out an application to get a new certificate or rating added onto an already existing certificate. Well, what happened was originally there was a line that said expect the unmanned aircraft, the portal to be able to accept applications for the unmanned aircraft certificate in late August. Then it changed, and it said late August or early September. So there might be a problem here where the regulations go into effect. However, the web portal is not up and running to handle that. So if you really want to get a head start on people, if you are a current Part 61 pilot, then what you could do is you could print out the Form 8710-13. I put that up on the website with the link to it. And previously that document was actually private for a while. The FAA had a password on it, and I got a hold of a copy, and I have the link to the public copy on the website. So you're going to have to fill that out, then go to the local FSDO, and then the aviation safety inspector, they can actually fill out the form and then issue you a temporary sUAS rating. And it's only for current Part 61 pilots. If you're a brand new pilot, then you could either choose to wait out the IACRA situation or maybe even mail off a copy of 8710-13 to Oklahoma City, and they could try to process it that route. So that's another way to go about doing it. The only reason why the Part 61ers can get their temporary in person is because they have already passed the TSA background check, while the brand new guys are going to have to pass the TSA background check. So that's why they can't get it instantly with 8710-13 at the FSDO, while the Part 61ers can, provided at least that they're current. Now, if you are a non-current Part 61 pilot who, instead of going and doing their biannual flight review, and there's some reasons why some people might want to do that. For instance, your flight review under 6156 it requires you to have 1 hour of ground, 1 hour of air. So let's take a 152 with a $95 an hour wet lease on that thing, and you have a flight instructor at $40 an hour. So you have 1 hour of ground, 1 hour of air. That's 2 hours right there. If you're going to need flight instructor time, that's $80 plus $95 for the aircraft. You're looking at about $175 to get your biannual flight review. You might want to just go and take the $150 exam that's cheaper and go and doing the initial knowledge exam that way, and then maybe try to attempt to get your sUAS rating add-on at the local FSDO. That hasn't been fully clarified. There was an individual in the DC, up in the DC office that I emailed yesterday, and they got back to me and they said, just go to your FSDO. Now, whether or not that actually can get done, there's some confusion there, but I wasn't able to find some information online that prohibited that. So best bet is to try. Ideally, what they were wanting you to do is, if you were if you were a non-current Part 61er and you did the initial knowledge exam, that they wanted you just apply on ACRA. But if IACRA is not going to be up and running on August the 29th, that's what kind of spawned me to think about why you might want to do that instead. And it's also cheaper.
Okay. After you, Gene.
This is another one of those things. If you're a new sUAS pilot, and all you have to do is go to the online thing and do the review and take that and send the form in for $150. Why would a person who is a Part 61 do anything any different? I mean, that's a question that I'm posing right now, because I went through the AOPA's Rusty Pilot program. I got the endorsement in my logbook and all that good stuff. I have my certificate for my completion of the sUAS review and test, and I should be able to fill out. I shouldn't have to go do a check ride. I shouldn't have to go do a flight check ride if the sUAS pilot doesn't have to. Correct?
Right. Well, you don't have to, or you either have to do the BFR for purposes of currency, or you're going to have to do the initial knowledge exam for purposes of currency. It's kind of like being a flight instructor, where you're current with the flight instructor, current with your pilot certificate, current for night, current for carrying people. So for purposes of wanting to get current for flying a drone, the only two ways to do that is to show you have your BFR, you took the online training course, and then go to the local FSDO and get it filled out, the 8710-13, or initial knowledge exam, and you have a Part 61 certificate, and that's the other way to do it.
Okay, and did everybody see what the guys at Autel have offered to do this week? Going to pay for your Part 107 remote test.
Yeah, but isn't there a deal where you have to pass?
Oh, I don't know. So
how many times can I pay for it?
Yeah, I don't know if you know, I don't know. I've given this stuff a cursory look, you know, some of the new study stuff and whatever else, and I don't know how many people are going to pass first go out, especially if they just kind of do it on their own. You know, so they may not be really shelling out a lot of money.
So you don't. I can go through my Sporties Pilot Shop CDs and make a go with this one, Patrick?
Maybe, and then see if they'll pay for it. Oh, or do you own one? I don't own one. I don't have one.
Well, I thought it was quite brave of them. I thought it was pretty brave of them to come on board with that as a manufacturer, and perhaps showing, I thought, a degree of responsibility. At least it's telling its people there is a sort of a path, an approved path that you should be going down, and you should be thinking about, you know, getting your ticket and getting sorted out. So I thought they came out ahead of everybody else. We don't see anything from 3DR or DJI in that regard. So I personally, I say well done to them. Whether it works or not, I don't know, but well done to them.
Well, no, I think it's a great idea. Okay, I do agree with you that it definitely, you know, culture of responsibility. Hey, we're happy to see this happen, and a few other things that you mentioned. So, you know, we'll see if the other manufacturers follow suit. I think it's a good thing, and it is a rebate. So, you know, we'll see what happens. I think it's all. I'm really interested to see what happens here at the end of the month. You know, if this thing goes off without a hitch, and or if it's just pandemonium, you know, or whatever. I mean, I'm sure they'll iron out the wrinkles, but I think the next couple of weeks here ought to be pretty interesting, if not entertaining.
I know one thing I've seen, and perhaps Jonathan can speak to this. One of the things I've seen people asking about, and I think there's a great deal of confusion about, is the waivers that are being spoken of for night flying or whatever else. Will these waivers be permanent things, or will they be per job? You know, do you have to apply every time? What's your sense of how that's going to be, Jonathan?
Well, normally waivers are done with a max of like 2 years, and how some of the airspace situations are being handled right now is that it's for the location, but then sometimes to get things through quicker, you might want to just say, we're just doing a 2-day job. But I don't really know if they're wanting to do that, because what if you have to come back and hit that same job site up again a third day or something like that? Then you have to go apply for more and more waivers. So practicality-wise, they might just shift to a certain geographical area that's defined in controlled airspace, because if you're going to operate in Bravo, Charlie, Delta, or Echo at the surface, you need a COA. So that for them, they might just grant it for 2 years. For night waivers, functionally, it would make the most sense to have it open for a 2-year period, or maybe a 1-year period, and they kind of keep it on a tight leash for with reporting or something like that. But with airspace COAs, I've seen it done with a short period of time as well as a 2-year period of time. So it's kind of still up in the air. They might functionally just go to 2 years just to keep these people out of their hair.
And then the other confusion that I'm seeing quite a bit of around and about on the webosphere is Gene's area of expertise, and that's search and rescue. People are wondering whether they're going to have a 333 or 107, or whether they can just carry on. I don't know, what's your sense of what's happening with search and rescue, Gene?
Well, most of the inquiries that we've been getting, and we've been getting quite a few from a lot of agencies, and there are some that are angling toward the public use aircraft. Those are typically the larger metropolitan areas that would use unmanned aircraft. The smaller ones are saying that they're going to go 107. They'll stay 107, and they'll pursue it that way. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And one of the things, again, I keep pushing this, and exigent circumstances. There's always going to be exigent circumstances for fire and search and rescue, and it's going to be interesting to see how the FAA handles those sorts of requests. And quite honestly, I'm probably going to be one of the first that tries to push that waiver through.
Yeah, it's definitely, people are wondering on the search and rescue thing. And while you're there, Gene, I'm going to put a picture up on the screen, because you're not only the search and rescue man, but you're the flying wing man. What do we think of the Parrot Disca?
It's a good-looking aircraft. There's no question about it, and they have done a good job of making a pretty rugged aircraft. The proof is in the pudding. We'll see how it flies. Of course, we know about the storied X5 and X8 project that kind of sprang directly from some of the stuff that we did early on, and it was, I mean, in my view, it was a gorgeous airplane, but it flew like a dog. Unfortunately, and we got to see how that works, because no matter what you call it and no matter how good it looks, if people can't use it, it's still going to be a flop. Yeah. And I'm real curious to start getting field reports on this thing. I would love for them to send me one. I would like to try one and put it through the ringer. Of course, I think I've probably figured out most of the ways to screw up a flying wing, and I think that it could be a good alternative to a quadcopter in, say, a forward observation for fire, wildland fires, and that sort of thing. It could be a very viable tool, but again, we have to see how it flies, how it handles the wind. Can you make it fireman-proof? That's another thing. There's a lot to be considered, even though the package is pretty.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, after you, Patrick.
Well, the other thing is it's kind of funny in the let's say current vernacular, when you talk about a drone, most people are like, oh, if it's not a quadcopter, it's not a drone. And this resurgence here, let's say, of a fixed wing aircraft, being a drone, is the let's say consumer drone community going to accept this configuration? That's an interesting thing to me. I mean, when you talk about drone, everybody's like, oh, that's a multi-rotor, a quadcopter, or a Phantom, or or the Solo, or whatever. So we'll have to see if it's palatable. This new drone design is palatable to the consumer market.
Well, I think what's interesting, though, is it doubles your Inspire or Phantom flight time and quite a bit faster as well. So if that camera in the front is any good, and let's not forget it's the same same camera that's in the Bebop, and they've already got Pix4D, which is another Parrot company. You can already make maps with the Bebop and do stuff with that. So if they bring that in, then it is the first sort of entry level smaller brother of the EB mass market flying wing. As I've said in what I've written here, let's not forget that while people laugh about the AR drone and say it's not up to much, it was pretty jolly advanced when it came out, and it was the first one that you saw everywhere. It was the first one in the big box stores, so they're not they're not as foolish as people think, by a long way. And I think this could be the lead-in drug and could lead a pathway straight through to very nicely up to the EB, and of course DJI, who are at the end of the day the only other player. That they don't have anything like that, and maybe it'll bring DJI into the flying wing space, and then we'll have a very interesting set of fights going on.
Well, I have to, my hat's off to Henri Sadieu, who's, CEO or whatever of Parrot. The guy's a businessman. He's got other products. He's got these products. He's brought other, let's say, complementary products into the mix. I think even the new Bebop is a good drone for what it does. Again, does it have selfie mode? Are people going to accept it? I'm interested to see what happens, and I'm interested to see if people use this to work with, which I'm sure they will. Go ahead, Gene.
Everybody knows that a quadcopter has got a limited duration, and if you came to the first expo, when I was doing the training at the expo, the hierarchy is that if you have a lot of geography, you use a fixed wing. If you have a short, a very narrow scope of view, then you send up the quadcopter. It's just simply more convenient. But it's not more convenient to take a quadcopter and hop over every half mile and try to do a search. Whereas this aircraft, again, it's fixed wing, depending on how it flies, can cover that same area and much, much more with the same sort of imager. So there's a hierarchy here, and people are going to learn that the hierarchy is big, fixed wing, small, quadcopter. It's easy.
Yeah, I wonder how it fits in the Parrot ecosystem with the EB and now this at the other end, because if it is any good, I can see it taking a lot of work from the EB, but the EB is a monstrously expensive thing for what it is. And straight out looking at the wing, when I'm looking at it there, Gene, I'm looking at the size of those elevons. They're pretty huge, eh?
Yeah, and that's another thing. We're learning that even though I'm from Texas, smaller is sometimes better. So it's the manageability of the system, the footprint, all of that's coming into play now because you got more and more people out there using them. They got to move fast. At least in my world, they need to be agile, and these smaller systems are starting to fill in those niche segments pretty capably, in my view.
Yeah, I think this is the start of a something. I'm not sure where this something is going. I think, as you said, the X series of wings are horrible. The X5 was horrible up here at altitude, as I guess you are in Texas and heat as well. It just didn't want to fly. I'm sure it was great at sea level. So again, that's where I'd like to see. I'd like to see if this, and straight away out of the box, I know an issue here in Africa, that thing's black. On a 40-degree day at 5,000 feet, that's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Straight away, without seeing anything else. But yeah, I'd certainly like to try and fly it as well. So they must send us a container of them.
Yes, for testing. Now, the other thing I think is going to be interesting, though, too, is I was talking to a scientist the other day who's using a couple of different systems to go and gather data. And there's a lot of questions about, let's say, different sensors, different cameras, different systems, different softwares. and the, let's say, lack of a standard. And people are wondering, you know, I mean, I guess as hobbyists and whatever, or people going out there and developing these systems, they're trying different cameras, they're trying different configurations to get data for a specific field or whatever. Well, people are starting to ask that question now. I don't want to buy a $12,000 system that's really not what I need, or to get the quality of data that I need. Or a $5,000 or $50,000 system, I really don't know what to do. So I do think that this is going to be another thing that gets sorted out after this thing goes legal. There'll be less work in silos, which is going on now. I think a lot of people have been kind of working in the shadows because it was illegal. Now they're going to come out, hey, this is what we found, or hey, this didn't work, or whatever else. I think that there's a niche here for some group to come in and set up standards for these different systems. And I guess at price points. People agree with that or disagree?
Patrick, I think if you'll recall back in the Halcyon days when we were, you know, all raring to go in 2005, 2006, you and I actually looked into trying to come up with a standardized camera system. And if you'll recall, I approached a maker overseas to produce a camera that was as high a megapixel as we could get, with standard features like, you know, why do you need a focus ring on a camera that's going to be shooting at infinity anyway, right? And we had put all that together, and the minimum order quantity was 10,000. And that was an issue. I think you're right. You're going to see more and more cameras being designed specifically for drones that have a GPS port in them that writes out the information to the EXIF file the way most of the mapping softwares want to see it. I think you'll see a lot of the sensor manufacturers cater to that. And I think it's going to be pretty soon, because you're already seeing it in some of the higher end cameras.
Yeah, and you know, DJI could easily be that manufacturer, couldn't they? They could say, well, actually, we don't want a hat in a ring with those flying wing things, but I tell you what we'll do is we'll gladly send you this plug-and-play camera system plus a light bridge system that will do your whole thing, and you'll be ready to go. We don't want to play with wings, but here you are, guys. You start putting this in. I could see them doing that tomorrow, and they're probably making more than 10,000 cameras a month now.
Easily.
Yeah. You know, I put somewhere else this week that you know, I can't emphasize how much of a big player they are now. I think they're certainly selling more autopilots per month than any American company, and I don't mean to be rude to you guys, but any American company has sold in their history every month. So they can't be ignored. What was another thing I picked up on this week? Let's have a look. We're not doing many 107 things here, are we? So we need to ask Jonathan some more 107 stuff, because that's what people really want to hear about. What do we all think of there are now 1,000 schools all popped up everywhere, and my personal thought is that come the day, and after a couple of weeks, when a few people have been through and gone to take their test, that's going to sort the wheat from the chaff, and we just got the lucky few that are daring to go first, that are trying it out for people. What are your thoughts out there from the industry, Jonathan?
I think that the drone community is about to get kind of woken up. Yeah, they're gonna get woken up regarding, you know, what is the drone industry. There no longer is the drone industry. There's just the kind of corner over there where it's all part of aviation now. So the manned aircraft guys are just chomping at the bit now to run in and try to, you know, this is a bunch of customers right here, and then some of those customers will get into manned aviation, so they just see this as another, you know, some more products that they can sell to these guys, and then get into other things. So Sporties is getting into this area, Gleim, King School, ASA. They've all been publishing material for, you know, how many decades, and now this is just, oh, well, we can repurpose some of our content and put some drone, you know, the word drone in it, and now we can put out books and books and books. And so they're going to come into the area. And then what's also going to be interesting is that how flight schools are going to adapt to it. So like American Flyers, for instance, they have shops all over the place for doing flight instructing. They can easily do a Saturday course where you hang out with a flight instructor who has years and years of experience that knows far more about aviation than many of these hobbyists will, and they'll be probably instructing the individuals on how to take the 107 exam. All these flight schools also have a computer in the other room, at least two, that are going to be the computers that you take your 107 initial knowledge test exam on. Like, it's like, oh, so you could have a course on Saturday, take the exam on Sunday, right, and then send it off, and then you're not going to get a turnaround time to be able to fly on Monday because you have to pass the TSA background check. But you could get this stuff done over on a weekend. And I just don't think the drone community realizes that's an option. So the whole flight instructing, teaching sector is going to be swamped with a lot of flight instructors, ATPs, commercial pilots, military guys that are going to come in and start teaching this stuff at a far higher level than what the drone community is used to kind of digesting. There's going to be big chunks of steak coming in when they're used to just drinking, formula.
Personally, I think that's quite cool, because in countries like here in South Africa, where the regulator was unsure that they really knew what they were going to do about RPA, they flipping gave the golden ticket to a few flight schools that set themselves up, and they've been teaching absolute rubbish as regards RPA and as regards aviation. And the trouble is they're operating in a sort of almost a cartel sort of a situation. So by opening this out to all your test centers and all your all your flight schools that want to pick up on it, that's going to keep the cost of this exercise down. Where there's only 4 or 5 schools, it costs a fortune to take your ticket. That was very much the case in Europe when it all started back in, certainly in the UK in 2007, where there was one operator. There's now more than 10 operators in the UK, and just by very fact of numbers, that helps keep price competitive for everybody. So that's very cool. So I think you're lucky that it's opening that. I know people are complaining, like Billio, that there isn't actually a flight test center in the same street as where they live. Funny old thing, so you've got to travel a few miles, but there's hundreds of them across America that are going to be able to sort you out.
There's 696 total test centers all over the place, so you can find a place to take it at. And the test is only going to take you, it's going to be $150, 60 questions. You have 2 hours. You just have to get a 70 or higher. So I don't see that as being super difficult compared to where we all were just, how many months ago. And especially kind of scroll back, look at where we were back in like 2007, 2008, 2009. It seems like we've come light years compared to where we were.
We have come light years, but at the conversation earlier today, one thing I do have to say is, just starting off, I think you're right. I mean, I'm staring at the FAA.gov page right now, and it doesn't say become a drone dude or become a drone guy or drone lady or whatever. It says becoming a pilot. And I think that a lot of people have kind of, I've heard the technology always wins and all the rest of that. I think this is going to be people are going to look at this and go, wait a minute. The questions and everything else and the training, I think, is going to set some people back on their heels. Other people are going to say, oh, wait, this is a walk in the park, kind of like you're saying now. I will say that what's in 107 now, and Gene, you might back me up on this. I mean, there's no reason they couldn't have done this 10 years ago.
Oh, no question.
I mean, we came with the ARC-CAPA stuff, with stuff that was, a lot of this stuff was things that we brought to the ARC that was in the MPRM and things like that. It amazes me. They talk, safety of the nest, and you can't do any harm, and we can't do this, and we can't do that. Well, as far as I'm concerned, the FAA made a total 180 with no science. And, if I had more time to write a story about this, I'd be asking the question, who turned the light on? And why, what was the catalyst that all of a sudden said, oh, wait a minute, it is safe, and we can do all this, and we still don't have to do the science, and everything's fine. I mean, remember how we tried years ago, Gene, and said, the RCAPA proposed guidelines, this is much safer than what's transpiring today. This is head and shoulders. We have a testing program. You can get insurance. You can do this, X, Y, Z. This all existed, 10 years ago. And
The
here we
aircraft
are.
didn't exist.
Well, not the consumer drone, but there were autopilots. That's another thing. I mean, in the history of this, I mean, you probably remember this too, Gene. Remember, what was it? Was it the Pico pilot that UNAV made? It was $350. It wasn't.
Yeah, Pico Pilot was Cloud Cap. No, it's a Piccolo.
Yeah.
Pico Pilot.
Piccolo.
You're right.
I mean, there was a $350 autopilot that actually worked pretty well. Was it on par with what we've got today? Probably not. But to say that this wasn't an industry, I mean, there was an industry. There was also the AMA co-pilot that people used, and I think some of the stuff that 3D Robotics used in the beginning.
Yeah, Fred Marks.
Yeah, exactly. Was some of that, and Fred did, drone stuff years ago for the military. Fred's been doing this for years. So this industry was here, capabilities were there. It kind of, I don't know. I guess I look at it, and when I hear the excitement and the people, oh my God, look, you can use drones for X, Y, and Z. It's like, yeah, we were X, Y, and Z 10 years ago. And I guess it's kind of fun to be all excited now, but this industry did exist, and it was on the track to be becoming.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. This industry didn't exist anywhere in the world until August the 29th of this year, and then it started. I've said this the whole time. As soon as America invents this industry, as soon as you guys invent it, which is August the 29th, then it'll exist. I do think this is the kind of quite a reasonable big start point, change point. I think history may reflect that, even though of course it's all been going a lot longer. But yeah. But you've got sensible things coming. It's a great start, and it's not too hard. It really isn't too hard to get into it all. And my opinion is, if you don't have the inclination or the time, will, or desire to just look at a few simple aviation things that will help you fly with other people in the NAS and maybe think about what you're doing, and safety management systems and aviation systems will do one thing for your business. It'll save you money in the end, because it'll stop you making silly human factors type mistakes, and that will save you money in equipment at the end of the day. It might seem like a complete faff right now, but I'm convinced it'll save people money. I'll get flamed for that. I'll get nasty emails for saying that, but I think it will at the end of the day. I don't know. I'll go back to the grown-ups.
I agree. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think that one thing that people will, I mean, they may not think that they need all of this, but if you're going to go out and do this professionally, you're still going to have to deal with the laws of physics and all of the other trappings of it flying and being aviation. And I think a lot of these things that you just mentioned are going to help people, let's say, have less pilot error and basically have to buy less equipment. I think I talked about that last time. The mean time between failures, coupled with the pilot error, and you might be hitting your insurance often, or paying to buy a lot of equipment.
Look, we live in 3D, but we don't think in 3D. And to be honest with you, 3D has to be trained.
It's very interesting. Gene, you've got to go off to a meeting. I know you've got to go off to a meeting, and we've been rambling on for almost too long a clock now again.
I have a question for Jonathan that I think a lot of people are going to ask about the background check. Yeah, wake up there, counselor. On the TSA check, I know that in the United States, because we are that kind of country, there are a vast majority of the states allow for a concealed handgun. And to get that concealed handgun, you have to do a background check. So could that background check be applied to your TSA while you're going to get your 7710-13 endorsement?
7730. You mean wait, what? Okay. You mean I'm like, wait, you're throwing wrong numbers out of me. The 8710-13. Okay, so there's really only two scenarios here. You either have a pilot's license or you don't have a pilot's license. So starting out with those that do not have a pilot's license, they have not received a security threat assessment check from the TSA, and it's up to them to determine their own standards on it. The FAA punted that and over into their ballpark and say, hey, you guys deal with your own standards. We're not going to touch that. But once the TSA gives the thumbs up, then that's when the FAA will send you a certificate. So I don't know the answer. The FAA has not been, not the FAA, but the TSA, I've not heard anything regarding if you can pass a background check. Because, yeah, I don't know that answer. I know there's quite a few people that are very, very interested in that. Now, if you get a pilot's license, a Part 61 certificate, you're going to have to pass, as of April the 1st, all student pilots and all non-student pilots, all the Part 61ers. They had to have passed a threat assessment from the TSA to actually have their certificate, and the TSA have a recurring obligation to keep checking out to make sure that the people didn't turn into terrorists after they pick up their certificate. So that's actually how, like, one case that happened, the Jeffrey case, and what had happened after 9/11, the TSA sent the FAA some letters, and the FAA then suspended their pilot's licenses. And so if you have your pilot's license, you haven't been suspended, then your TSA, you're not a terrorist. And so then that's how you can then go to the FSDO, provided that you're current with your BFR, and then get your temporary rating add-on using 8710-13 because you've already passed your background check for your manned pilot certificate.
Well, I know I'm in the NSA database, but I don't know about the TSA database.
Yeah, I don't know if they're sharing data or not. I would hope they.
I was teasing. That was a joke, Jonathan. It was a joke.
He doesn't do jokes. So this TSA thing, does this happen after you've done your test, or can you go and do your TSA thing today, or how's that work?
Yeah, so you take your initial knowledge exam. If this is your first timer, you take your initial knowledge exam, and then you're going to apply on IACRA. Or you can do the paper version of 8710 and then mail it off to Kansas City. Who knows when that's going to come back. So what they're trying to do with the IACRA, which might not be up and running on August the 29th, they're going to receive it. TSA is going to background check you. Then they're going to give you a thumbs up. Then the FAA is going to send you a temporary certificate electronically via email, and then eventually you're going to get your permanent certificate in the mail, and that's how that whole situation is going to work. If you're a first-timer.
Do we know how many people the TSA can verify every day? Will they be able to cope?
2.
I'm not sure how well they'll be able to chew through the volume of people that are coming through. So, but you also have to remember, it's only the people that pass the knowledge exam with 70% or higher. Okay. So that's going to whittle out a whole bunch of people. Then the Part 61ers, a lot of them aren't probably going to go the IAC. They don't have to background check those guys. So it's only the brand new guys that passed 107. And remember, these are the same guys that are doing the recurrent threat assessments on already existing pilots. I forgot, how many of these guys do we have? Like 100-something thousand pilots around the U.S. So they have a continuing obligation to keep checking these out. So it's not like we're totally catching them off guard. It's just there's going to be a spike here of people coming in. So the FAA said that they were trying to get the temporary to you via email within about 10 days. Well, play this out. If IACRA is not up and running on August the 29th, let's say it shows up on September the 10th, then you apply for your remote pilot certificate. You're a brand new guy. via IACRA, and it's if let's say they are really fast, they actually get it back in 10 days, then you're not actually going to be up and running until you have your temporary in hand, and that's going to be like September the 17th. So some people are thinking August the 29th is go date. For the brand new guys, they're going to be like probably sometime, September, or hopefully not November, if they take it right on the dot. So that's something to keep in mind if you have jobs around that time frame. You might want to start making contingency plans and finding somebody who already has a Part 61 certificate who's getting the rating added on, and maybe hire him to do the job.
Or a 333, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of restrictions on those compared to 107. I'd rather
Sure.
I mean, for the hassle you got to do to comply with 333, you might as well just go hustle up a 61er
61,
to get his 107
yeah.
add-on. That would be easier, actually.
Now, if you generally, I don't know how it works in the States, so you're going to have to fill me in, but in a lot of places where I've had to take flying licenses, other countries, if you fail 3 times and make a pig's ear of it 3 times, they put you up for review, and they want to know whether you're ever going to be a pilot. So how does the system work over there? Can I fail it 1,000 times and just keep going?
According to the regulations and everything I've seen, you can just keep failing it. The punishment is that you're going to have to pay another $150. So that's kind of your incentive to not repeat, be repetitively stupid, and putting a little bit more effort into your study habits, because $150 gets kind of expensive when you're on the 3rd, 4th, 5th try. So with manned aviation over here, if you actually fail your initial knowledge exam, you're going to actually have to meet with a flight instructor and go over those deficient areas. So that's not the case with the 107 guys, which is kind of unfortunate. I wish they would have had a little bit more of included flight instructors into some gatekeeping functions there, that they might have had a brief practical with the flight instructor, or at least the required sign-off for the initial knowledge exam, something like that, to kind of control it, but as well as force people to kind of be introduced to flight instructors so they have a wiser person to turn to in case they have questions. But I think Gene's got to get out of here because he's giving us the thumbs up. So
he's doing something.
I do.
Cheers, Gene.
We'll see you. Have a good one.
Cheers, man. Thank goodness he's gone. We can talk about him now.
Yeah, let's talk about him. Oh my goodness. Oh.
What a man.
That dirty. Oh, jeez.
He owes me so much money. No, anyways. Yeah, so also another point I want to make regarding the 107 exam is that everyone's looking to just get in and get the certificate. There was an individual on Facebook that put out a really interesting quote, and I agree with it, that it was saying, like, hey, if you're just studying to get your 107 exam but without really trying to kind of comprehend it to operate professionally, do us all a favor and go be mediocre in another industry. And I was like, that's I think that's going to be something we're all going to need to keep aware of as we all get our 107 certificates, is because there's going to still be that leftover bro mentality that'll carry forward, and then over time, though, at least it'll probably start clearing more and more out, and there'll be more of a culture of compliance, of professionalism. But then also what's going to happen here is that once we have this 107 certificate, there's also going to be a need to add on to that more like a secondary type of certification, depending on which industry you're in. And so the drone operators now might want to kind of heed my advice and don't compete in the basic 107 category, because you're going to get probably squashed by ASA, Kings, Sporties, all of them, who are just going to flood the market with incredibly high quality content, but they're not going to be able to have the insights that the drone operators will have regarding operations in those particular industries. So maybe a specialized 107 course that has a whole entire, maybe half-day component of nothing but how to get the best real estate photography or cinematography or mapping, because there's going to be a secondary component that is going to be needed to do your job well above and beyond just the 107 exam. I mean, there's the material is coming out. FAA just released their Part 107 study guide. It was like an 87-page PDF. I just released today my own study guide, sent it out there for free because a bunch of my clients needed it with some of their pilots. So that market is probably not good right now. Get into the specialized drone operations for that specialized industry, and I think that there's going to be some money in that area.
Patrick, you've probably got some thoughts on that.
I agree, and it kind of sounds like whoever you saw that quote from is looking to win the Patrick Egan Mr. Congeniality of the Year award with the mediocre people.
Wants a pony.
Wants a pony. With the mediocre people go join another business. I mean, on some level, I feel like either like the Jiminy Cricket of this industry, which had kind of been for a while. There are a lot of folks, I think they're going to go down to, and I don't want to single out any one store or any one brand, but buy this consumer drone and go out there and do, be a home inspector or a surveying map maker or, a whole host of other things, or search and rescue or whatever else, and they're going to go off with hardly any knowledge of what it takes to operate in these industries and make an ass out of themselves. And hopefully, I'm hoping with the warnings that they don't make an ass out of all of us. I think there's going to be a lot of people rushing in and not realizing, we talk about how they don't realize it's aviation, that they're not business people, they're not, people that are certified professionals and things like that. It's going to be interesting to see, but yeah, think about, do some research before you jump out there and call yourself something, because you could get sued.
Yeah. Well, did we all see the video of the Inspire that hit the car on the bridge in Sydney yesterday? Somebody was just driving home. It's a doctor just doing his doctorly thing, coming home from the office, and an Inspire skewered the side, and it had to be a car that was 2 days old. Of course it had to be a car that was 2 days old, but it left the motor and a prop and quite a bit of the arm went into it was like a Mercedes, some big posh thing, left quite a bit of Inspire in the car, and he drove off with it in the car. So that's a story that'll blow up everywhere. So yeah, as you say, you could get sued. You could even hurt somebody, which people I think are still they still don't seem to have taken that on board. I still see people saying, how's that going to hurt me? How's that what's a Phantom 1 how's that 1.2 kilos going to hurt me from 1,000 feet? I'll just knock it aside. That's how good I am. Yeah. So yeah, that's got to change. It's got to change.
Well, I still think that the OEMs, we still don't have any scientific research done by the OEMs of what kind of damage their systems can do to, let's say, non-participants, which I think is foolhardy. Again, I think the legal side of this and the insurance side of this, it won't take long to sort all of this out. And I'm going to use my cell phone app and get my $10 an hour liability insurance, which I don't even understand how that works. I've never heard of anyone, securing insurance for $10 or, writing policies, but we'll see how that happens. Anybody done any research on cell phone insurance?
I got to read some of it last week. We briefly that came out, the Verifly situation. So the underwriter was Global Aerospace, and they're pretty well respected in the aviation industry. It had $1 million of liability insurance with $10,000 of privacy insurance. So that'll be in the event that you get sued for some type of privacy violation, which is, you might have a situation like that brewing here and there in certain states, especially like in Florida right now. We have a law that was passed, and if you take a picture of a person, of that person or of just their property, where you would not be able to actually view that property from ground level because there's a fence. So if I take a picture of your backyard with my drone, then I can actually be sued in a court of law. There's a private right of action that statute allows for, and it has attorney's fees to whoever wins. and you can also go for punitive damages. Now that'll scare people, but you also have to remember it's whoever wins. So if you are the winner, then you can get attorney's fees. But then if you have a broke guy suing you, yeah, because but then if the attorney, you might not be able to get an attorney, because when he's finding out who's on the other side, he's going to be like, yeah, that guy doesn't have any money, so you're going to have to put up the money, because I'm not doing criminal defense work. I mean, not criminal defense, but personal type of defense work for free. So he's going to screen the other guy as well as screen you to find out if there's any cash involved. So I see that as being very valuable to protect you from those type of frivolous situations that have popped up, because the FAA has not really been very. We haven't had a public hangings, and public hangings do a fairly good amount to deter criminals, to people that are flying illegally, to prohibit. It also deters people from the perceived need that they need to come in and regulate this area, because it's a Wild West, if you will. So the FAA not publicly going after people as much. I know they did the Skypan and Parker, and they did a few here and there, but because of that, the states, towns, counties, cities have all run in to try to regulate this area. And what's also interesting is that the FAA seems to be kind of going after people and keeping those enforcement actions very quiet. And I'm like, why is that? And what's actually really shocking is when you go through of those, Jason from Motherboard, who released those 23 enforcement actions. When you go through all 200-something pages of those documents, you kind of find this kind of disturbing picture of like, well, the FAA's been picking on a whole lot of people here quietly, and this hasn't been publicized, and how many of those people were represented. And that's not all, because what was actually released, I knew of other pending investigations and law and enforcement actions that were going on. So the FAA, when they released those FOIA documents, they didn't actually release the ongoing ones right now. So we don't actually know how many are fully going on right now, and there's more and more that are bubbling up here and there. And I'm wondering if it's kind of a tactic that the FAA is doing to kind of put the pressure on these people. And it's disturbing to see what they're actually citing these people for. And I don't know why the AMA hasn't actually kind of picked up on this and actually started trying to want to pick a fight with the FAA on these points. Because flying an unregistered aircraft, you can be cited for that. You can be cited for flying without a registration on board, because not only registration, you have to have it on board or with you. Then also flying in certain types of airspace. There's one guy was cited for flying without an airworthiness certificate. Let that sink in.
But have any of these stuck, Jonathan? Have any of these stuck?
Well, what happens with litigation is that most people settle. So they're out of the 23 that went forward, a large majority of those were settled. Parker settled. Skypan's still getting negotiated and worked on currently at the moment. One of the guys, I forgot his name, he died, so that case just stopped because he died, but a lot of them were all settled. But there are current ones right now that I know of, and I can't speak about them because I have confidential info, but those are going on right now, and yeah, it's kind of disturbing that the FAA is going after people and charging them with certain regulations, and it's like, okay, whoa, what are you doing here? I'm surprised haven't really kind of picked up on that.
What would being settled mean to me? So I've been picked up for whatever offence it is. The FAA take me to court, and then I hand them some money, and we come to an agreement. I hand them some money, and it's settled. So have I got a criminal record? Am I on notice? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, you'll have an actual violation. It's going to be listed on your pilot's record. If you go and get one, you're going to have that. One downer is of the kind of what's going on right now is we had one guy with a commercial pilot certificate who voluntarily allowed to get it suspended for kind of a reduction, I believe it was, in penalty, and another guy just agreed to a revocation. Actually, I get that mixed up. The revocation guy he had a student pilot certificate, and he was like, "Hey, you can revoke it for a reduced sentence. Reduced amount of civil penalty that they agreed to." There was a commercial pilot who had his pilot certificate suspended. There was another guy who had a commercial pilot certificate, also had his, I believe it was an emergency, either suspension or revocation, and that happened. And so what's interesting there is that's going to be on the record. So good luck going forward if you're going to get a job with like an airlines and they pull your record and see you've been suspended or something like that. That's bad. So you will have a record in that sense. For a lot of the drone operators, they could care less about going to
Yeah.
those
Yeah, because
areas.
we're not
So
under.
What's the penalty for them then if they don't have a pilot's license to lose other than losing the cash?
right, yeah, other than the cash. So I mean, if you don't really care about going into that area, or you have a record, then for a lot of people, they're not going to care. So that's why the FAA is going to try to make things sting by fining them and then trying to rack up as many violations per flight that they can do. So for under 107, you're going to be flying, you got some careless and reckless manner that you did. What else did you do on top of that? Did you fly in such a way as to make manned aircraft give way? Were you flying in controlled airspace that you shouldn't have because you didn't have a waiver? Did you have your aircraft registered? So they're going to go through each one of those and then say, okay, you violated this, this, and this. Okay, yeah, we have 3 violations right here times $1,100 a piece. That was $3,300 total in aggregate fines for that one flight. Did you fly twice? Oh, you did. That's $6,600. Oh, hey, by the way, why don't we send you a subpoena and then you tell us everything you've done regarding how many flights here, there, and wherever else, and who was the guy that you worked with? Your client. We'll send him a subpoena. That's what they did to Skypan, and then Skypan. Maclo Properties then turned over a lot of those documents to the FAA when Skypan was fighting it out in the district court. So the FAA had a lot of material just from the client of Skypan, and then they went later on forward with the $1.9 million aggregate fine of all the different locations that guy flew at. And a lot of that stuff you can get from the subpoena that came from the Maclo Properties. You flew at this situation. Here's cash checks at this. Here's an invoice at this location, and boom, 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 boom. And each of those you had how many different violations every time. So that's how you got to $1.9 million really quickly. So going forward, I think the FAA is going to probably have to start stepping up their enforcement actions, going after people. I think that's going to be a change here, and I've already started feeling that, if you will, by the people that have been contacting me, much more so. That light switch has kind of gone on, and they're investigating a lot of people and going after people now, a lot more so.
That's going to be because of course once you've got your 107, you're going to be a good boy and you're going to fly down the line. So it's not going to be you, but what you're going to be really upset with because you've done that is you're going to be really upset with the guys that haven't got a 107 and are operating commercially anyway. And again, other than the money, there'll be people that aren't interested in getting a license after 107. So that's probably what you've just said. The FAA are probably going to go harder after those people that are still, I'm not going to get no stinking license.
Oh, right. Well, there's going to be the holdouts.
30 seconds for me.
And there's going to be a lot of the 107 guys are going to go after them. I mean, we've already seen that the last year and a half with the 333ers versus the non-333ers and how, I've heard all sorts of interesting scenarios there where the 107 guys where you had them turning into the FAA and reporting to local FSDO or the hotline or something like that. The activity of the individual kind of just laying down everything for the air safety inspectors to kind of go after them. I've also seen where the 333 operators have gone after the clients of the non-333ers, and we're like, hey, this guy's operating legally per what the FAA says at such and such a location. They've sent out letters, they have, I believe, emailed, and they've even phone called. So I've heard, all sorts of stuff happening with the 333ers and non-333ers, and I suspect that's just going to get even more heightened here when a lot of people get the 107 certificates and they're wondering why someone else is shooting, downtown Atlanta or LA or Miami in Bravo airspace, and then they had to go apply for a waiver, and that these guys are getting the job, and people get very, very frustrated, and they want to go after people because they're losing the work, and so it's there's two sides of the coin where people are like, well, everything was very burdensome. I couldn't feed my family. I have to put food on the table. This is what I have to do. And then other people are like, well, I got food to put on my table. I have to do it. I have a family too. So then everyone thinks that they're right in their own mind, and they're all trying to get each other in trouble. So it'll be interesting here. That bay doesn't really need a lot of investigators when you have two people that are constantly trying to get the other guy in trouble.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it, isn't it? Look, we've been rambling on for an hour. Eric, the man who likes our my music mentions every once in a while, notice your music mentions, and he's just asked, I see on the comments from the YouTube channel, on which website is that musical form, and it's on your website, Jonathan. So perhaps we'll put the URL in the show notes, but maybe you want to sound it out now.
Oh, the URL, it is
just your URL. I'm sure they'll be able to find it.
I was like thinking the whole URL. I'm like, I don't remember what the whole URL is. It's Juliet Romeo Uniform Papa Romeo Echo Charlie Hotel Tango Lima Alpha Whiskey.com. So jruprechtlaw.com. And I also just put the study guide up there, the 100-plus page study guide for 107. So.
Perfect. All right. We better crack on. We've been ranting for an hour. We'll try and rant again next Tuesday. Thank you, Phil. I see we have had a few people crazily watching. Maybe a few of them would like to join us next time. So email us if you want to join. If you want to win a pony courtesy of Patrick, then don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to get the direction wrong. Wherever it is, somewhere down there, there's a subscribe. Patrick's giving away ponies. It's got to be a good thing. Good night, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.